Okay, next we need to look at dimensioning exercise 2. So if you click on the example 2 tab, we get into this example 2 drawing. So as you can see, remember back in model sphere, so I just pop in there for a second, it's the one up here in the top left hand corner. So by clicking on the example 2 tab, we've got a viewport here already created. It's scale 1 to 1. So we've got a viewport already here, and we don't even have to worry about sort of changing too much about the dimensions for the scale of this. We're just going to maybe modify the format of it slightly, but the fact that there's a different scale on the viewport, we're not too worried about that. Because remember, because of our associative dimension, it's going to take care of that for us. However, we do have to kind of change the format a little of this, because we're going to look here at tolerances now. Again, if you're not used to tolerances and things like that, this might be sort of something that you may or may not use. First of all, we need to set up a dimension style for our tolerance. So using the casting as our default, we're going to create a new one. So make sure you have casting highlighted. Click a new dimension style, and this one's going to be called tolerances. And so starting with casting, we're going to use the settings we have already made in casting, and we're going to do a tolerance with this. So everything's kind of okay there, I think. Let's check the notes. Now it's one slight thing, we're going to just make these aligned with dimension lines, so I suppose I ought to keep that one right. So in the text tab, just change this to align with dimension line, and everything else then I think is okay. So pop along to tolerances then, and there's a few different methods of tolerances that we can use, so I'm going to go through a few of them with you now. The first one we're looking at is the symmetrical one. I think that's the one we're going to use. So if I select precision, and we're looking at 2 decimal places for my precision, upper value, and you see the lower value is grayed out, so the upper value is 0.5, so that's the size we're actually meant to change it to. So you see that down here it's still only showing sort of 1 place as decimal. Again, if you come down to the very bottom, there's a trailing 0 suppression. If I uncheck that, in it comes here as 5.50, so just make sure you uncheck that 0 suppression trailing, otherwise you'll just get 0.5. Click OK to that, and I'll just show you what the symmetrical tolerance looks like then when we put it in. Set the tolerances dimension current, and then pop in a linear dimension like you would normally, and you get a nice symmetrical tolerance showing you that it's the distance from the edge of the block, say, to the center of the hole is 40 plus or minus 0.5. Okay, so that's the tolerance. Again, remember you can kind of change between dimension styles with this little drop down box, which is very handy. If I pop in, so that's symmetrical. If I pop in now and have a look at deviation, you can see now the low value box actually becomes live now, so we can actually change in that. So if I decide pop in a lower value of 0.25 and an up value of 0.5, click OK and click close. Oops. A little bit of a bug in this system here. If I go in and modify it, every time you go to this, unfortunately this jumps back to whole numbers, and you have to keep selecting this one, so it's jumped back to whole numbers on me. That's why that I got that wrong view there the last time, so one just to kind of keep an eye on. So you can see there I got 40 plus 0.5 minus 0.025. Back in again, modify. So you see that this lower value is a minus figure. If you wanted this lower value figure to be a plus figure, so let's say you wanted it to be 0.1, which you can get in tolerances from time, so it's a plus and a plus value. Obviously then minus by minus becomes plus. Remember your maths. Click OK on that, so 0.5 minus 0.01, close, and I've done that again because of that little bug. Bit of a nuisance that. Click on that OK, and you get a tolerance of 40 plus 0.1 plus 0.5. So again, if you know tolerances, you know that there are occasions when you need that kind of a tolerance on your drawings. More specifically on holes, if you like, and fits for things, and I suppose locations. So again, pop back in there, modify. So that was just adding in a little minus. And again, if you want to reverse, obviously, if you want two minuses, obviously take the minus out of that and put a minus in there. And we might kind of do something like that, because that's going to be the top figure. And maybe want that to appear like that. Click OK, click close. And I got caught again with that. God. There you go, and you get a minus 0.1, minus 0.5 tolerance. Okay, so that's the deviation. So if I modify that again, so that's deviation. The last one then is limits. Oh, sorry, there's another one, basic. Limits. Put an upper and a lower value. So again, if we just put in 0.5 and 0.5, an upper and lower value, don't forget this time might be precision. And click OK. And close. We get that method, and that's a good method if you've got somebody checking out a drawing. So if you're just looking to give a drawing for somebody to check details on a component, that's a good method to use, because there's less likelihood of a calculation error on the tolerance. Somebody's not going to make some silly mistake. They clearly can see the upper and the lower values, 39.5 and 40.5, so that'll be plus or minus 0.5 on a 40mm dimension. So you can see it's an easy one to follow. So if you've got somebody maybe that's not used to tolerances and dimensions, you might use that style. Okay, so that's the limits. The last one then is just a basic, and no need me to go in and show you. It just puts a box around the dimension. It doesn't give you any dimensions. If I close out, just and you might use that for a reference dimension, just to reference it. That's all, really. Okay. So we're looking for symmetrical, so I go back to symmetrical, and don't forget my 2 decimal places, 0.5. You can adjust, there's a few other things you can adjust here as well. I suppose we might as well mention them. Scaling for height. Again, if you decide, you might do 0.75, scale the height of the actual tolerance in relation to the main tolerance figure. Come down here, we might kind of place it in the middle. So I click OK, and close on that one. You can see something like that. Right, scale it. You'd probably really use that more in the deviation one. Anyway, go back to deviation and try that with deviation. Close. And you could maybe even make them a little bit smaller, but it's just to kind of take away that big look of the tolerance thing as well. So you can do that as well. So I leave that at that. Last one then is just, again, creating another dimension style. Again, using the casting as our current. Create a new one. This time this one's going to be called something limits. So we already looked at limits, so we'll just go and finish this one, complete it, continue. So we're going to set limits on this, and it's going to be, again, plus or minus 0.5 and 2 decimal places. Don't forget my trailing 0, go back to my text, horizontal, just check this little bug doesn't catch me out again. Click OK, and set it current, and I just do my dimension from here to here, and hopefully that's right. And I didn't do the second. Oops. I didn't do the low value. It's 0.5 for the low value as well. Click OK and close. That little thing. Okay, there it goes. And close. There we go again. So 30.5, and eventually we get there. And that's tolerances. Like I say, not something everybody uses, but if you can use them, they're not too difficult, apart from that one little bug. Okay.